Hello students, this is Mahesh Kumari, PGT English from KVOCF 6029B Chandigarh. Today I am going to take up drama Mother's Day from class 11th supplementary reader snapshot. Mother's Day is a drama written by J.B. Priestley. It focuses on the idea that mother is the most neglected member in the family. She cares for everyone, but no one cares for her. It's a thought-invoking drama which gives us a need to think mother's place in the family. J.B. Priestley has shown us how the kids can be insensitive at times and how do they start taking their mothers for granted. It's a humorous and satirical depiction of the status of women in family. J.B. Priestley advises all husbands, son and daughter to take care of their mother. She is the boss of the family. They should give respect to her and they should be ready to give their thanks for everything she does for them. Let's start with the play Mother's Day written by J.B. Priestley. In this play, we'll learn about the author, introduction of the play, characters and characteristics, details of the play, value points, short answer type questions, long answer type questions about the writer. J.B. Priestley was born on 13th September 1894 in West Yorkshire, England. His love for writing began while working at Halm and Company. He would write articles at night after work which were published in the local and London newspapers. Priestley served in the army during the First World War. During the Second World War, he played a very different role, which was that of a regular broadcaster on the BBC. The writer had his first taste of success with his novel The Good Companions in 1929. He wrote in different genres, travelogue, essays, novels, and plays. Apart from this, he was a broadcaster, scriptwriter, and a social commentator. The play Mother's Day was written in 1950. For the better understanding of the play, let me introduce you with the characters. We are having Mrs. Annie Pearson, George Pearson, husband and wife, Doris Pearson, their daughter, Cyril Pearson, their son, and another character is Mrs. Fitzgerald, their neighbor. Mrs. Annie Pearson, wife of George Pearson, a loving wife and mother, fond of her husband and children. She does her best to keep them happy, simple-hearted, gentle, too weak to protest, works day and night without rest. She is submissive type of character. George Pearson, husband of Mrs. Annie Pearson, about 50 years old, self-important and pompous, neglects his wife. Club members backbite and make fun of him. Third character, daughter of Pearsons, Doris Pearson, a spoilt girl of around 20, dates a young boy, Charlie Spence, and considers her mother insignificant. Cyril Pearson, son of George and Anne Pearson, spoilt like his sister, is also indifferent and insensitive towards his mother. Another character, Mrs. Fitzgerald, a neighbor of Mrs. Annie Pearson, a bold, talented, strong, liberated, dominating, aggressive woman, knows some magic, drinks, smokes and plays cards, live life on her own terms. I divided the play into different parts so that you can remember well when you go for your examination. The play opens in the living room of the Pearsons' home in a London suburb. The two ladies, Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald. Both are sitting together in the living room. They are sitting comfortably while taking their tea. Mrs. Fitzgerald, her neighbor, tells Mrs. Pearson her fortune with the help of cards. According to her, Mrs. Pearson's problem is that she is excessively fond of her husband and children. She runs after them all the time, takes their orders. Mrs. Fitzgerald advises her that she should stand up for her rights as the mistress of the house if she wants them to treat her properly. Mrs. Fitzgerald asks her to let them wait or look after themselves. Mrs. Pearson says that she cannot do it. Mrs. Pearson is puzzled at this. Mrs. Fitzgerald tells her plan and says that they would change their personalities with each other. She had learned this art when she was in the East. Mrs. Pearson hesitates, but Mrs. Fitzgerald holds her hands, asks her to keep quiet and not to think about anything and look at her. The two women stare at each other. Mrs. Fitzgerald holds her hands, asks her to keep quiet and not to think about anything and look at her. The two women stare at each other. Mrs. Fitzgerald recites a spell. Gradually, their personalities change bodies. Now, Mrs. Pearson is bold and domineering, while Mrs. Fitzgerald is nervous and agitated. After the exchange of personalities, Doris Pearson is the first one to enter in the room. Doris Pearson enters in the room violently and she orders her mother to iron her yellow silk as she is to wear it that night. Yellow silk means her dress which she wants to wear. She is surprised to see her mother smoking. Mother has not got her tea ready. She is no mood to iron her yellow silk for her. She is rather thinking of going out and getting a meal. Doris is shocked at the unusual behavior of her mother. Then she tells her mother that she is going out with Charlie Spence. Mother asks her whether she could not find anybody better than buck-toothed and half-witted Charlie Spence. This is too much for Doris. She runs out of the room with tears in her eyes. This is the first time that Doris Pearson see this behavior of her mother. After Doris Pearson, then Cyril Pearson enters, son of Mr. and Mrs. Pearson. Now Cyril Pearson has given some assignment to her mother, but when he enters in the room, he finds that her mother is smoking. And again, like Doris, he also surprised to see the changed behavior of her mother. He wonders what's going on in the house. He is shocked when she tells him that she wants stout to drink and moves to the kitchen. Stout means beer. She takes a bottle of stout and a half-filled glass. Cyril and Doris, who are watching their mother, they are unable to control their laughter. Mrs. Pearson looks at them with contempt, with hatred, and asks them to behave like grown-ups. With tearful eyes, Doris asks why she is talking like that and what wrong they have done. She asks mother whether she had fallen or hit herself with something. Mother rebukes her for asking such a silly question. Doris begins to cry. Mother coldly asks her to stop crying noisily like a baby. Then George Pearson enters. husband of Mrs. Pearson. He notices Doris's tears and asks why she is crying. Doris runs out of the room. He is surprised to see his wife sipping stout. As both the children, they were also surprised to see their mother behaving like this. Now, Mr. George, he is also surprised to see that his wife is drinking. He tells her that he doesn't want any tea as he would have supper at the club. Mrs. Pearson tells him that there is no tea ready. He is annoyed to know that his wife didn't get tea ready for him. So Mrs. Pearson laughs at his childishness and remarks that if he behaved like that at the club, they would laugh at him even more than they do now. George is surprised to know that they laugh at him at the club. Mrs. Pearson continues that he is of their standing jokes, means all the people at the club make fun of George Pearson. They call him Pompey Ompey Pearson because they think that he is so slow and pompous. George is shocked. He walks out of the room. Cyril gets upset at his mother, yet tells his father that it is truth. He told her father that mother has behaved with him and Doris in the same manner. So, dear children, we have seen the reactions of the family members at the changed behavior of Mrs. Pearson, because earlier she never shows such behavior. She was very calm and composed lady, took the order of all family members and fulfills them with honesty. Now, let's see the effects on the family members of the changed behavior of Mrs. Pearson. All the family members are feared and seem to be in giving up mood. They are feeling helpless, shocked, and they don't know what to do, how to behave with Mrs. Pearson. They are also worried to see the changed behavior of Mrs. Pearson. Just they all were thinking about Mrs. Pearson's behavior. Just then there is a knock at the door, and Mrs. Fitzgerald, their neighbor, enters. She feels the tension in the environment and she asks Mrs. Pearson whether everything is all right. At this, Cyril remarks that everything is wrong. Mrs. Pearson asks him sharply to keep quiet. Cyril walks out of the room. Mrs. Fitzgerald is also surprised at this turn of events and asks Mrs. Pearson nervously what she has been doing. Mrs. Pearson tells her calmly that she has been just putting them in their places. Just then, Josh enters the room. He is looking very upset. Mrs. Fitzgerald, actually Mrs. Pearson, watches all this helplessly. She is utterly confused to see her family members in a miserable situation. She requests all the family members, Mrs. Fitzgerald, who enters in the house, she requests all family members to leave them alone. She wants to have a secret meeting with Mrs. Pearson. And Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson's heart filled with pity to see the miserable condition of her family members, and she make a request to Mrs. Fitzgerald for the change. Mrs. Fitzgerald wants to continue a bit more of it, but Mrs. Pearson would not listen to her. She says that she cannot wear it anymore. She stretches her hand across the table eagerly, and Mrs. Fitzgerald recites the spell. They became their proper personalities. Mrs. Fitzgerald now advises Mrs. Pearson not to go soft on them again. Otherwise, their efforts would be wasted. Mrs. Fitzgerald warns her that she must not start giving explanation, asking for apologies, otherwise she would again be back to where she had been earlier. With this, Mrs. Fitzgerald leaves the room, and Mrs. Pearson, she finds George, Doris, and Cyril standing in a row at the doorway. The family looks anxiously at Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson now she is the actual Pearson. She smiles. They feel much relieved and they smile back at her. Now Mrs. Pearson tells them what she thought they would do at night, and she herself assigned duty to their children to prepare supper while she has a talk with their father. Now they are happy family. All the family members, they realized their mistake, and they are ready to help this lady of the house. Thus, Mrs. Fitzgerald, neighbor of Mrs. Pearson, helps helps her to become the boss of her family. Now she is really the boss of her family. The play, in this way, the play concludes on a satisfying note with Mrs. Pearson regaining her dignity. Now all the family members lovingly clusters round mother. With this, we come to an end. Now, dear children, there is a short presentation. As you have gone through the play, you will find here difference between the personalities of Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald. Please go through it. Then there is a short assignment for you. There are a few questions which you will read and will submit the assignment. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you once again.